that then connects to our immune system, our digestive tract, right? We're then also more vulnerable to environmental toxins, right? If our body isn't eliminating these things, or we don't have the microbiome to fight these things. So it makes the argument for, this is really a problem. And potentially a lot of the disease and dis-ease that we see can be connected to these nutritional choices. Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepic, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey there, welcome back to another episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepic. Stephanie is back. Hi, Steph.
Hey, guys. Good to be back.
So I feel like we haven't seen each other in a hot minute.
Yeah, since our birthday back in September.
You.
I know, it's been like a month.
Crazy. And marathon is so soon.
3 weeks from today. But
you're ready.
Counting?
I know. But who's counting? Totally. The funny thing about you being back today, though, is that it's sort of fitting today's topic because this was before September, but you were here for our episode on poop.
Mm-hmm.
And today, I think, is sort of connected to that, but not like a part one or a part two, just sort of like in the same bucket.
Yeah, I know. You told me the topic, and I was like, it's fitting that I'm the guest.
Right. So, guys, today we're talking about America's fiber problem. And that is like, there's no other way to say it. We have a fiber problem. And what's funny is that even what you, Stephanie, you said to me before we started recording, you're like, oh, everybody eats too much.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, no. You guys, we are not eating enough fiber. So we'll get into it in a second. I want to let our members know what they're getting. So I'm sending you guys 2 recipes this week because I just couldn't help myself. One is for artichoke, spinach, and white bean dip.
Ooh.
It's like warm and delicious. If you're having company, make it as an appetizer, or if you have to go somewhere, you could bring it. I would even add it to like the Thanksgiving spread.
Ooh.
Like have something that is a great choice. And your other recipe is for stuffed acorn squash. So this one uses quinoa and is totally plant-based, but you could certainly add some animal protein if you wanted to. And in light of today's topic, both of these are high in fiber. So one serving of the squash is a half a squash, gives you 8 grams of fiber. And a half a cup of the dip gives you 7.5 grams of fiber. So we're doing pretty good already, I think, with these recipes. And to top it off, they're so simple to make. You're going to love them. So if you're thinking about becoming a member, it's time. Join us. New people are joining the membership every single week, so it's never too late. And also, what are you waiting for? Come on. So go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. For $10 a month, you get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus access to live Q&A sessions. And literally with this full offering, it pays for itself. You're saving more than that $10 cost. So as I always say, show yourself that your health is a priority with this membership. Plus, by being a member, you're supporting this podcast, this community, so that we can continue bringing you new episodes and experts every single week. So one more time. You go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or just click the link in the show notes. Once you're there, you click support now, enter your email and payment method, tap subscribe, and that's it. You're all set. You'll get this week's recipes, the artichoke, spinach, and white bean dip, and the stuffed acorn squash. We should have that for dinner.
I know. I'm like, I was just thinking this episode is so hard to do right before dinner because now I'm like, great, I'm hungry. It's all I'm going to think about.
All right. So I want to start with what I mean by America's fiber problem. Okay. So some stats for us. So it's estimated that 95% of American adults and children do not consume the recommended amounts of fiber. 2009-2010, NHANES, which is the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. So their data is like some of the best data around nutrition. Their mean daily fiber intake was 16.2 grams, which was actually an increase from 2001 to 2002, which was 15.1 grams. So then in 2005, or at least since 2005, the Dietary Guidelines for Americans have identified fiber as a nutrient of concern.
Oh.
Right? So what's crazy to me though, but like, have you ever heard that?
No, I honestly thought it was the opposite.
Right. Right. And like, I've been in this space since not long after that and have not heard this information. So like,
it's like almost like a bird is being extinct. It's like that, you know, I equate it on that level.
Right. Like the species of concern. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I went digging to see if there was more recent data. Right. So there was, sort of an aggregation of a bunch of studies, you know, on fiber intake. And so this pulled together was talking about how adequate intake of dietary fiber is associated with digestive health and reduced risk for heart disease, stroke, hypertension, gastrointestinal disorders, obesity, type 2 diabetes, and certain cancers. Like, duh. Okay, we'll come back to that. But according to consumer research, the public is aware of the benefits of fiber. Most people believe they consume enough fiber, as we saw.
Yes.
Right? Okay, the national consumption surveys indicate that only about 5% of the population meets the recommendations. So that still fits with that 95% don't. Mm-hmm. And then to address the fiber consumption gap and formulate potential solutions, researchers, educators, and communicators convened at a Food and Fiber Summit in January of 2014 in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
Who knew that even happened?
Sounds like a fun time.
I know. Seriously, like the party you don't want an invite to. Yeah. But then again, I'm still looking for newer research. So Harvard Health published, or reported, I should say, in 2019 that on average, American adults are eating 10 to 15 grams of total fiber per day. Like, the general recommendation is 25 for women. More than that for men. I mean, it really could even go up to like 38 grams a day.
Wow.
For men. So like 10, we have a major problem.
Wow.
And then, you know, and I think I want to talk about what got us here, and we'll come back to this, but I think the implications for overall health are dramatic. And we see these like a rise in all these other health conditions that are very much lifestyle derived, for lack of a better phrase, I think.
And is the like recommended like amount, is it based on like body size, age, or is it just like women, men, children?
So there is sort of a range for women, men, age. There's also some assessment where they do it based on total calorie consumption. So that was like, I want to say that one they said like 14 grams per 1,000 calories.
Okay.
So if you think of like, you know, for women, like a 2,000 calorie diet, right? 28 grams of fiber per day. But the reality is like, we have a problem with even understanding the quality of calories. For us to be doing that as a, based on the calorie count is sort of like a mismatch, mm-hmm. You know? But that actually brings up, like, I think how we got here, because I mean, we grew up with this food pyramid.
Yeah.
Right? And we've been told that grains are how we get fiber. Right? But most of the grains or grain-based products that we eat are so highly processed mm-hmm. that even if there is generally fiber in the grain initially, it's not necessarily there in the things that we eat, but we think it is.
Yeah. Well, and then some of those things like cereal and some of the oatmeals, like they also have the added sugar that's not good, and who knows?
Right. So speaking of cereal, so there was an audit of cereals, and 34% of the ready-to-eat cereals that carry a whole grain claim are actually not a good source of fiber.
Wow. Yeah, a lot of people eat like bran flakes or like Cheerios even because they say they're like a good source of fiber.
Right. And I think the other side of all of that is the perception of fiber itself is that if something is high in fiber, it tastes like cardboard. Right? Yeah. Like the idea of fiber being delicious is like incongruous.
Right. It's probably just the word. Like when you think of fiber, like what does it like bring to your mind? It, something textural, like nothing. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think cardboard.
Yeah.
I think cotton, like
fibers.
Like
your clothes.
Yeah. The opposite of delicious. And so really what happens, right, is and we talked about this with the poop episode, that like fiber is a major piece of what helps us eliminate, right? If we're not eliminating, we have a buildup of toxins in the body. Mm-hmm. Even still, our gut, if our gut microbiome, right, can't take care of some of the toxins and can't help us absorb nutrients, and then that's not being carried away, we have issues, right? Our ability to absorb nutrients, our ability to stay full. And so fiber in our daily life, we notice the difference when we have it, when we don't. And then the long term, like the snowball effect is, I'll say this in the positive. So fiber in foods is associated with reduced risk of cardiovascular disease, coronary heart disease, stroke, hypertension, gastrointestinal disorders, obesity, metabolic dysfunction, including prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, colorectal, gastric, and breast cancers.
Wow.
Right? I mean, our overall health, as much as we talk about overall health being a function of metabolic health is very much a function of nutrition, and fiber is a major piece of that.
Well, and I think back to that old episode when we talked about it, we're like, how many times do you go to the doctor and they're like, Jen, do you get enough fiber? How much fiber are you getting a day? Like, they don't ask those questions.
Well, even if they did, that's part of the problem, because even half of these surveys and studies on people and their fiber consumption, they're self-reporting. But if we all think that we're eating more than we are, I have to think that the actual numbers are less than the 10 to 15 grams. Because it's similar to like we underestimate how much we eat, we overestimate how much we exercise. Fiber's in that category.
Yeah.
And so the other side too is when our gut can't function properly, it also increases the burden of detoxification on the liver and everything else. And so we see this snowball to other parts of the body, even though like the gut stuff makes sense with fiber, like there's such a snowball to other areas of the body when we're not getting enough. And there's actually, so really interesting research, especially as it relates to the stuff that we talk about here all the time, with weight. So there's a study of, they took the microbiome of obese rats and put it and like swapped it with the microbiome of normal weight rats. The normal weight rats who got the obese microbiome started to gain weight. And the obese rats who got the normal weight microbiome started to lose weight.
Wow.
And so there's a direct connection between what is happening in your gut and what's happening elsewhere in our body and storing fat and how our body processes nutrients.
And mood too. I mean, you always hear like gut and microbiome is connected to mood.
You're like in my head, right? So that's
I'm
like
not
the
reading
next
the
thing.
notes, I promise.
So it's the brain gut connection, altered food intake, right? Alters that. The gut microbiota affects our nutrient acquisition and energy regulation. So it's like this is sort of sciencey, but I'll just say it. So diets rich in fiber have high colonization rates. So that's like what's happening in the microbiota, like the good bacteria are there. And low, if you have low fiber, like, or highly processed foods correlates to low colonization rates. And so again, we see this connection between the food choices and the quality of what's happening in our gut. So that then connects to our immune system, our digestive tract, right? We're then also more vulnerable to environmental toxins, right? If our body isn't eliminating these things, or we don't have the microbiome to fight these things. So it makes the argument for, this is really a problem. And potentially a lot of the disease and dis-ease that we see can be connected to these nutritional choices. Mm-hmm. So you might want to say too, so interestingly also, if we don't have enough fiber, we have a hard time absorbing a lot of vitamins and minerals and things like that. So, and then we also talked about briefly like the toxin buildup. So how's your energy? Right? Are you tired all the time?
Well, I'm the wrong person to ask that. I mean, right. I'm tired for different reasons, guys.
Right. Totally.
But no, yeah, totally.
But if it feels like no matter how much sleep you get, you're tired, mm-hmm. or you really need that caffeine to function, right? Some of these things can also be indications of actually a buildup of toxins, which if we eat the sufficient fiber, we sort of detoxify and we can support our body in that way. It connects to that. It also connects to, I mentioned immune health and digestive health before. You mentioned mental and emotional health, and our skin health.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So a lot of times we say our skin is our intestines turned inside out.
Ew.
But like if something's happening in the gut, you're going to see it in your skin a lot of times.
Like a lot of the autoimmune disease, like even like psoriasis mm-hmm. type stuff is like linked to diet.
Yeah.
Some of it. It's crazy. Or like when you eat, they always said, oh, chocolate causes acne. It like doesn't, but poor
right.
diets, if stuff's not moving through, it's got to get out somewhere and it comes through your pores.
Yeah. And then there's like different areas of the face that are connected to different organ systems in the body too. So like if your liver is having issues, that can show up on one side of the face or, mm-hmm. Whatever. So, like the lungs are like the apples of your cheeks. So a lot of people with like rosacea or, things like that. Sometimes we want to look at your pulmonary health.
Wow.
So anyway, I digress. Back to the gut. So the other interesting thing, or at least that I think is interesting, so the lining of our gut, when we think autoimmune, a lot of times what happens with autoimmune is that the lining of our gut has deteriorated. And so essentially what's happening is toxins and bacteria and all these are really getting into your blood through your intestinal wall. And so the lining of your gut needs short chain fatty acids. The microbiome, right, the bugs, ferment the fiber, which creates butyrate and other things that are critical for the lining of the intestines and the whole body. We talked about butyrate when we talked about butter. But it's these short chain fatty acids that are also created when we eat fiber. So especially, just to clarify too, with autoimmune, it's like your immune system is attacking itself, right? But it stems from the gut.
Wow.
So interestingly, in my digging around for like the current data of like people's fiber consumption, there was one thing that talked about the potential economic benefits of eating sufficient fiber. So I have to share this with you guys because I thought it was really interesting. So it was saying that improving dietary fiber intake, there was some economic modeling that found that increasing dietary fiber consumption may lead to considerable annual savings for functional constipation-related healthcare costs. According to this analysis, an estimated $12.7 billion, billion with a B, in direct healthcare costs related to functional constipation could be saved if all American adults increase their dietary fiber intake by 9 grams per day, reaching the U.S. Food and Drug recommended daily amount of 25 grams. Just a 3 gram per day increase by half of the adult population could save more than $2 billion.
Wow. Wow. And I feel like people would be happier too because nobody
Right.
likes being constipated. That is not a fun time.
And mood too.
Yeah,
right?
that's
and
what
the
I
money,
mean.
right?
Yeah,
The mood, the
happy.
money savings, all the things, then like the actual biological connection between the gut and the brain, all the things. But like, it's funny to me because I think we don't always connect the cost of healthcare to our food choices because it can feel like the quality foods are more expensive.
Yeah.
And like, this has been an episode that I've wanted to do for a really long time about the true costs of eating healthy. But every time I go to aggregate the data, I get overwhelmed and I shut down because trying to figure out like the actual healthcare costs in the long term, like I think here's the moral of that story. Like the punchline of that episode, if I can ever get it out, is basically that like we're either paying now or we're paying later. Mm-hmm. Right? We pay now in our grocery bill and we have health, or we pay later in healthcare costs.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
But it's sometimes harder to wrap our head around that. But so I feel like we made the argument for like we need fiber?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, cool. So I want to talk about types of fiber, how to get more of it, all that good stuff, after a quick message from our partner for this episode, Snap Cleaning Products. Make household and industrial cleaning a snap with their eco-friendly, economical, multi-purpose Snap products. Snap's concentrated multi-purpose formulas perform light to industrial strength jobs all in one bottle. Snap products give you the cleaning power of a variety of cleaners, saving you time, money, and valuable storage space. And Snap products were developed with the environment in mind, using plant-based ingredients that are biodegradable, phosphate-free, non-toxic, and bottled in recyclable containers. So we're talking about America's fiber problem today. And it reminded me, right, of we also have a toxin problem. And a big place where we get so many chemicals without even really realizing it is with our cleaning products. So think about the cleaning products in your home. Even if you think they're clean, like you think your bread has fiber, let's read the label, right? Let's check the ingredients. And I say it every time, but the name SNAP stands for Safe for Nature, Animals, and People. So these are what I use. You can remove the toxins from your home, all your cleaning products in one fell swoop with the Snap Pack. It's like the complete home care kit, giving you a bottle of the triple enzyme laundry detergent, dishwashing liquid, fabric softener, heavy-duty concentrate, all-purpose natural concentrate, scouring deep cleanser, disinfectant cleanser, and the accessory pack that has like the empty bottles because they're super concentrated. So you fill the bottle with like mostly water and then just a little bit of the stuff. It's really a no-brainer for $79 and you get 10% off. So clean sweep of all your cleaning products at home. So text the word CLEAN, CLEAN, to 844-947-4846. You'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, simply text the word CLEAN, CLEAN, to 844-947-4846. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. All right, Steph. So how much do we want in a day and where do we get it? So we talked about how much we want in a day already, right? 25 grams for women, 38 for men. 5% of people in the U.S. are meeting this target. And the truth is, it really could even be up to like 35 grams of like our proper needs. Mm-hmm. For kids, it's recommended that children over 1 year of age increase dietary fiber intake by increasing consumption of a variety of fruits, vegetables, legumes, cereals, and other whole grain products. But again, we have to really read the labels because we think things are made out of whole grains, but once they're processed into whatever food they are, do they really have all of that fiber still there, right? So we really have to read labels.
And isn't it like insoluble fiber, soluble fiber, and you want like a mix of both?
Yeah. So we'll come to this more. So soluble fiber is soluble. It dissolves in water to some degree and forms this like gelatinous paste. It's not paste. That's the wrong word. It's like a thick gelatinous substance. I don't know
it's like chia seeds, right?
Yeah, but like if chia seeds dissolved and you just had like the pudding part of like a chia pudding.
Yeah.
Kind of like that, right? And then insoluble fiber is more gritty, right? That doesn't dissolve in water. So I think I've said this to you guys before. One of my teachers says, fiber is the scrubbing bubbles of our intestines. So if you think about the insoluble fiber, the gritty stuff is like the bristles of the brush, like in the commercial for scrubbing bubbles, like the bristles of the brush that like loosen everything and like to clean it out. And then the soluble fiber, I feel like all the stuff that the insoluble fiber loosens gets stuck in the soluble fiber to carry it out.
Yeah, it moves it through.
Right. There's a lot more that soluble fiber does than just help move that through. And we'll talk about that stuff in a second. But it's interesting because they're now sort of reframing this is actually coming from the National Academy of Sciences, that now defining fiber as diet. So total fiber equals dietary fiber plus functional fiber. So functional fiber being the non-digestible carbohydrates that have beneficial physiological effects in humans. That's like the official definition, but it's a different way of looking at all this. And functional fiber is really critical for what we call nutrient assimilation, right? Or getting the nutrients into our body into a way that they can be used. So functional fiber, it's like the bacteria can sort of ferment, and that can create short-chain fatty acids, like we talked about, that are so important for the lining of our gut. And then, we'll talk about this in a second too, but there's this idea of like prebiotics and probiotics and then the functional fiber. So we sort of want to shift how we think about all this stuff a little bit. But like I said, and where you said, one of the biggest things is we think about when somebody says carbs, we think grains, right? Or chips or whatever. Mm-hmm. And those tend to be very processed foods. So like, even if, so brown rice, in 100 grams of brown rice, there's 3.4 grams of fiber.
Wow. That's like nothing.
Right. I mean, especially if you consider the fact that you had a cup of raspberries, you would get 8 grams of fiber. Mm-hmm. I will say though, like raspberries take the cake, like they win all things on the fiber front. But like, it's interesting because then even if you look at a brown rice cracker, there's going to be next to no fiber in it. So we really have to read those labels. I know I keep saying it, but I need to make sure we do it, right? Because especially if we're using those grains as part of getting our fiber, we have to make sure that it's actually still there. So talking about, like, I say this all the time, right? Like my favorite sources of fiber are fruits and vegetables. So the raspberries, right?
Yep.
That was 8 grams per cup. Apples, bananas, oranges, those a lot of your other berries too, those tend to be 3 to 4 grams of fiber.
Wow. So an apple has less than raspberries?
Yeah.
That's insane. Because everybody's like, apple a day keeps
right?
the doctor away because of the fiber.
Well, it's the fiber. There's also a lot of other vitamins and minerals, but it's also I'd rather eat the apple and get 3 to 4 grams of fiber there than a half a cup of brown rice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, there's a lot more happening in the apple than that brown rice.
Yeah, true.
Other fruits like this, like guava has 9 grams of fiber. Mango has 5 grams.
Ooh, love mango.
Your dark leafy greens. So this is where, like, it's really interesting. So the darker the color of the vegetable, the higher the fiber content generally. Carrots, beets, broccoli, great sources of fiber. Collard greens and Swiss chard have about 4 grams in a cup. Artichokes have about 10 grams for a medium-sized artichoke.
For an artichoke. That's interesting. I wouldn't think artichoke.
So that's part of why that artichoke dip. So that artichoke dip that I'm giving you also has white beans. So beans and legumes can be a great source.
Right?
Yeah.
Dark. Leafy green.
Right.
So smart. Oh my God, it all comes together, guys.
Right.
She has a method for the recipes.
Potatoes and sweet potatoes, right? Those, depending on the size of the potato, like, could be like 3 grams of fiber and what you're getting there. But again, you want to eat the skin.
Yeah. Do fries count?
Not so much. I mean, look, I love me some fries, right? Like, I'm not going to say never eat fries, but I'm not going to look at the table and say that my fiber is coming from my French fries.
If you did, then you'd have a problem.
Right. And so, like I said, we also sort of talked, like, we used to think about fiber in terms of soluble and insoluble, and we want a mix of both things. So the soluble fiber is like your beans, peas, oats, barley, citrus fruits, apple. Those are the ones, right, that are creating that gelatinous substance. Your insoluble fiber, so the scrubbing part of the scrubbing bubbles, beans, whole wheat, green beans, cauliflower, nuts, potatoes. So if we eat a variety, then we're going to most likely be checking the boxes, provided we're eating a variety of foods that come from the earth. Mm-hmm. If we're eating a variety of foods that come from a box or a bag or a window, we're not. Box or bag or window, we're not. And I love it on occasion, right?
Yeah.
It can really hit the spot. But is that every day all the time? Or is that once in a while, I can't really remember the last time?
Right.
So talking through, because soluble, I mentioned this before, like that soluble fiber and sort of digging into some of those things. So soluble fiber has been connected to helping maintain healthy levels of cholesterol, healthy blood sugar levels, glucose and insulin levels. It's slowly absorbed into our body, right? Both types of fiber, right? Slow the release of food and fuel and sugar into our system, which means that it creates sustained energy. It also supports healthy overall intestinal function, maintains healthy intestinal microflora, a healthy GI tract, and that fullness, right? We're not hungry 5 minutes after eating something. And so especially if you're concerned about blood sugar issues, we want to look at the fiber, right? Because again, if we eat foods devoid of fiber, they're released into our system very quickly. That spikes our blood sugar.
It makes you more hungry.
Yes.
Like you eat.
Well, then we crash.
Yep.
And we're hungry again.
And you eat that for lunch from a window, and then you're like 2 hours later, I'm starving. And then you reach for the candy or whatever, you know.
Yeah, there's also some evidence that soluble fiber, when it swells up, gathers fat particles along the way and carries them out of your system. I'll take that.
Yeah, I was like, we love that little guy.
Right. And then we want to talk about this prebiotic function, right? So a prebiotic is fuel for the gut biota, right? So if we think about we might be all, I feel like probiotics have become such a buzzword, right? So maybe you're taking a probiotic that's all these millions of, bacteria. If we don't have the proper environment to feed that bacteria, it doesn't really matter. If when you eat them, they're not alive, doesn't really matter. And we have different bugs in different parts of the GI tract. So also, if you have ones in the wrong space, could be doing more harm than good. So probiotics we want to be careful with. But to give ourselves the best chance with the probiotics, we need to have a healthy, quality prebiotic environment that is created by fiber. So prebiotics are the fuel for the gut biota. Resistant starches, right? So those things, it comes from like potatoes, sweet potatoes, green bananas, oats, barley. Resistant starches help create those short chain fatty acids that we talked about, right? That help with the lining of the gut. And they act as regulating the energy source for the gut and the immune system. So it's really that indigestible fiber that feeds the good bacteria, promoting a healthy probiotic growth. So that's the purpose of our prebiotic. Then we can take our probiotic, right? And then we need the probiotic, right, to then be followed by what we call functional fiber, or sometimes in one of my trainings recently, the doctor called it a peribiotic, like pre, pro, and peri.
Oh.
Like a peribiotic being, again, a lot of the foods that we eat, but functional fiber, greens, fruits and vegetables. So for some people on occasion, that might be like a greens supplement kind of a thing, but eating our fruits and vegetables so that the fiber can help play a role in our nutrient absorption and our colon health and, detoxification, all of those kinds of things we really need to do. You're giving me like the smile and nod.
Yeah.
It's a lot. I know.
It's a lot. Like, I mean, I take a probiotic every day, but like, what about, like yogurt? That has some bacteria stuff. Sometimes the yogurts say like they're prebiotics too.
Yeah. So yogurt is most likely not a prebiotic unless they've added fiber into it.
Sometimes.
Right? They could have added like inulin. That's one of my favorite sources.
What's that one that's like in the little green thing that like they have you're supposed to eat it for your digestion?
Proactive? That's your skin. No, that's your skin. Proactive was your skin.
But it's something like that. The active yogurt. It's in the little green.
Yeah.
Activia?
Activia. Yeah.
Yes.
So I haven't done a ton of research on it. And we talked about these things a little bit when we did like the fermented foods. So it depends. Most yogurts, they're going to fortify with the bacteria, the probiotic bacteria, and potentially fortify with fiber to create the prebiotic environment. Because the pasteurization process, how they make yogurt, is very different than fermentation, which would be what's required for the yogurt itself to be probiotic. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I just remember in college, like eating the Activia, we always had it.
Right. And the thing is like we need to make sure that we're feeding all kinds of bacteria. So the Activia most likely has certain kinds. And so if you're eating that all the time, cool, you're getting those all the time. But what about all the other ones?
Yeah, that's what they say.
And so we need to make sure that we're getting a variety, that they're getting to the right places, because again, if we eat it with our yogurt, by the time it gets to the right part of our system, like our stomach acids have probably killed them.
It's sad.
Poor gut bacteria.
I know.
Right.
They're just trying to do their job.
I know. But, it's the balance, right? And I think we all, in taking a probiotic, have the best of intentions, right? But we want to make sure it's this idea of like when we were talking about it with the prebiotic, probiotic, and peribiotic, it's the idea of like stacking, that we're following this through the whole system to create the health outcome, right? And it doesn't have to be super complicated. Like I think those words make it sound more complicated, right? But the idea is basically eat quality foods from the earth that give us the prebiotics and the peribiotics, right? And that creates the environment to support a healthy gut microbiome. And we can use the probiotics, you know, to support us even more along the way. But I will say when it comes to supplementing with fiber, I like inulin. There's an ingredient, it's a branded ingredient called Fibersol 2. You know, there are some out there, but generally you want to be careful when supplementing with fiber powder because a lot of times they can take out everything. So they're taking out the good stuff and the bad stuff, right? And that's not really what we're looking for either. Sometimes they're made with only a single source of fiber, which again, we need that variety. We need all the types. And I think also sometimes we can take those at the expense of eating nutrition. And we can't undo our food choices with supplementation. We can't undo our food choices with a workout. Like supplementation is designed to fill in the gaps where our nutrition falls short. But we can't supplement our way out of poor nutrition to health.
Yeah. Like we were talking before, like, oh, what about those like Fiber One bars? Like,
oh, yeah.
Eat an apple.
Right.
If you want a snack, you know?
Because, and again, like I haven't looked at the label of a Fiber One bar in a really long time, but I do remember like really in my old Weight Watchers days, right? It was like, how much Fiber One can I eat? Because it was like negative points with all that fiber, right? But what's the source of the fiber? Is it actually doing more harm than good if we're taking out all the things, right? We also want to work our way up. I was going to come to this in a second with, you know, how in adding more, and we want to work our way up and what can happen with a lot of those foods. Oh, we talked about this even on that episode with the F Factor diet. If we go from like 0 to 40, 50 grams of fiber a day, you're going to be sick.
Yeah.
So often too, when we go with those choices, maybe like the Fiber One bars, we're going from A to Z super fast and it's not actually helpful. You know, so we need to work our way up gradually. Our best sources are the food where it's not added and fortified and, you know, but like actual food from the ground. The fiber powder that I will use on occasion also has, so it has 10 grams of fiber coming from inulin and the Fibersol 2. And then it also has 1.5 billion CFUs or colony forming units of probiotics. So it's giving me both of those things. Like we're giving the probiotics and we're feeding them at the same time. Like that sounds really smart to me.
And when do you have that? Like when would you take that?
So sometimes I'll have it in the morning. Sometimes I'll bring it with me if I'm traveling.
Yep, we talked about that.
Right. Like travel has a way of screwing with the system, right? So like, or if my food choices, like I'm traveling and my food choices are likely not to be my normal.
Right.
I'll throw it in.
Although you can eat anywhere. Go back to that episode.
Right. Wink, wink. And yeah, so like I'll use it on occasion. But I mean, listen, there are some doctors I work with who recommend it as one of the essential 9 things that people need. But I think that's also because 95% of people aren't getting enough fiber. And I would prefer that we have this conversation about the food stuff and then have tools in our back pocket for when we need them than to say, add in these powders.
Yeah.
and you're good.
Yeah, and then carrying them around everywhere.
One more note on that, because this fiber powder also has a gram of glutamine. So glutamine is fuel for the GI tract, and it's been shown to help maintain normal cholesterol levels, normal blood sugar, promotes immune health, promotes the growth of some probiotics. So again, like, there's a really smart formula if I'm going to choose to use it, you know? But again, let's just eat more fruits and vegetables, right? So some easy ways to add things in. If you make a soup, add in some dried beans, right? Just throw them in there.
Lentils too?
Sure. Yeah. Beans, legumes, you know, even some peas on occasion, right?
Ooh, I love peas. You know, pro tip, I put them in my like pasta with pesto. Delicious. Yum. And really fills you up too.
Go for, we were talking about chia seeds before, like a chia pudding or chia yogurt, depending on what you're mixing it in, right, or with it. But like plain low-fat Greek yogurt, add some nuts and seeds and fruit.
Raspberries,
right? But like raspberries and chia seeds on some plain Greek yogurt.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You could make a vegetarian chili, right? I gave you guys a chili recipe last week. Again, like whatever vegetables you have, throw them in there. By the way, if vegetables are starting to go bad, make a soup.
Yeah, like I have a like great pumpkin chili, and it's got, you know, the beans and pumpkin is good and all the things.
Yum.
Yeah.
You could add nuts and seeds to your salads, right? Some people even do fruit on a salad. If I do fruit on a salad, I'm picky about what vegetables go in that salad. Like, I have a hard time with tomatoes and fruit. Even though tomatoes technically are a fruit, I feel like that's weird together.
I like it with watermelon. Watermelon and tomatoes go well.
Yes, that's fine. But I don't generally eat them in the same bite.
Oh.
I'm very weird.
With a little mint and feta. It's delicious.
I know. Go to Seymour's in New York.
Very summery.
Their watermelon salad. Cut up cauliflower, broccoli, carrots, veggies for snacks. You could dip them in salsa. You could dip them in hummus. I've also been known to dip them in Dijon mustard.
You could even make like a white bean dip and use that.
Yeah, use your veggies for the artichoke, spinach, and white bean dip.
Yeah. Or like throw a bunch of fruit and chia seeds and, you know, dark leafy greens in a blender and you have a smoothie.
Yeah. So interesting thing about the smoothie, the more work the machine does, the less work our body does. So yes, you're getting all these things in there. We're breaking down some of the fiber before we eat it. So not as great as if we ate all of those handfuls, but still better than a juice, which has none of the fiber.
Oh, that's interesting, because everybody thinks smoothies are like so healthy.
Listen, on occasion, 1,000% they hit the spot. They make it super easy to get a ton of stuff in.
Yeah.
But like, I'm a big fan of chewing food. You know, I think generally, right, if we eat more whole, natural, real food, less processed food, less food coming out of boxes, bags, and windows, we're going to work our way toward the 25 to 38 grams of fiber a day. And I want to repeat that. We're going to work our way toward 25 to 38 grams of fiber per day. Like I said before, we don't want to go from 0 to 1,000, right? Your system's going to respond. Make sure you're also drinking enough water as you increase your fiber intake. Again, we talked about that with the poop stuff, but like, make sure you're getting enough water.
Yeah, so it like helps move it through and...
Exactly. And of course, by the way, like constipation, chronic diarrhea, digestive issues, talk to your doctor, talk to your pharmacist, like have these conversations instead of, or in addition to, working on your fiber. All right, Stephanie, did we do it?
I think so. I mean, I still think maybe me personally, some days I get too much fiber. But on those days, like, you know it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it, like, balances out, right? Like, because there might be one day where I'm like, whoa, I had that salad with all the things. Maybe had, like, I do put raspberries on my, like, oatmeal in the morning. Maybe have beets or whatever. And then some days you're like, whoa, that was a lot. And then the next day you, like, dial it back. I feel like it balances out.
Right. It balances out. And I think, but also even just paying attention to how your body responds is a huge win. Like, oh my God, you noticed, right? I think sometimes we're also so disconnected that we think we're fine and we don't notice that, like, we're not.
And I think, so the moral of the story here is, right, like, you'll notice because the mood, the sleep, but also you're going to be regular with that, meaning, like, you're going to the bathroom.
Right.
Pretty much every day. That's, like, a good, and ideally more than once, right?
Right,
we talked about this, like,
yes, do you remember what it's supposed to be?
After every time you eat a meal,
Yes.
like a baby or like a dog.
Exactly.
I mean,
there should be a bowel movement for every feeding.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like I just said that in a very, like, adult way. I'm proud of my word choices.
Yes, no, but it's true. But, like, I guess the goal here is, like, because, I'm not looking at grams and measuring stuff.
Right.
It's like you're going every day.
Right. And that's the other thing. Like, we don't need to obsess. But if you think about the kinds of foods that we talked about today, how often are you eating those? How much of them are you eating? If we look at breakfast, lunch, dinner, and any snacks, is there quality fiber every time you eat in a sufficient amount?
And that will help you feel full,
right,
too. So you won't have dinner and, like, an hour later be, like, looking around the kitchen, what can I snack on? Like,
right,
you're full.
Right. And if you are looking for food an hour after dinner, there's an episode called It Happens at Night, which is about nighttime eating. It all comes full circle.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. And I just want to say, right, this is America's fiber problem. And I think it really stems from this idea of pushing toward convenience, toward the processed foods, and away from foods that have nutrition. And fiber is apparently, right, what do we call it? The forgotten nutrient, a nutrient of concern.
Yeah.
So let's do our part for everybody, for our families, for ourselves, for our kids. Like, no longer a nutrient of concern for this crew.
No.
Okay.
Getting it in.
Awesome. All right. Are we ready for our nutrition nugget?
I am. I'm intrigued by it.
Okay. This week we're talking about tacking. So this is actually a sailing term. Steph, have you ever been sailing?
I mean, I've been on sailboats.
Right.
Usually
okay.
with some champagne, but I've never had to, like, do manual labor on the boat. Like,
got it.
Move the sails.
Okay. I'm going to tie this back together in a second. Okay, so when we're on a path toward optimal health, right? Having vitality and energy and, maybe that's also weight management, right? There are bumps in the road and it's frustrating, right? There's holidays, travel, work, maybe you hit a plateau or maybe even the scale goes up, right? And then we see friends or people on social media and it looks like the weight is just falling off of them or they never have an issue, right? And here's the thing. In those moments, we learn how to navigate the challenges. And that is what makes this last for forever. We're never going to go the rest of our lives without a vacation. Right? So if we go from here to there, never figuring out how to navigate a vacation, that vacation comes and then it's all, forget whatever plan we were on. And what I see with people who lose their weight in a straight line, it doesn't last. Like, I can almost guarantee 100% it will not last if we get there in a straight line. Because part of this process is learning how to adjust and keep moving forward. Mm-hmm. It's just like sailing. So in sailing, a sailboat cannot go in a straight line. So a sailboat zigzags back and forth from its origin to the destination. All the while moving forward, but it's this back and forth zigzag. That zigzag is called tacking. And it's the tacking that's the magic of making everything we're doing last for forever, to keep the weight off for good, right? It's learning how to zigzag, learning to tack like a sailboat, to navigate the obstacles and the challenges, always moving forward. So with the holidays approaching, right? And we're actually going to talk about this more next week, but with the holidays approaching, Halloween's around the corner, right? Life is sort of returning to some degree, or maybe you hit a plateau. Like, remember that these are actually really great signs and a chance to learn and grow and continue adjusting, because that's actually what's required for your results to last. So the moral of the story here, be a sailboat.
Be a sailboat. I love that. Although you're like, did we forget how to vacation? I mean, after 2020, right. I don't know, your first one out there, it's like a little test, but.
Right. But we learn how to navigate those things and return, come back home and pick back up on our typical routines and our habits. And like, I remember I had vacations, like our family used to go on cruises every December, right? There were cruises where I would gain 5 pounds. Then there were cruises where I would gain like 1 or 2 pounds. Then there were cruises where I could just stay the same. And it eventually got to the point where I would lose weight on a cruise. But it was all the while like learning how to navigate all those situations that is the lifestyle I lead now.
Yeah.
Compared to then. And like, if I lost all the weight in 6 weeks and never had to deal with any of those situations in a new lifestyle, those vacations would look very different.
Yeah. And I think after a while, you kind of train your body. Like, I know for me personally, like after a few days of like going out or drinking more than normal because you're either at a work conference or you're on a vacation, your body starts to crave the normal things that you're, usually like Monday through Friday, normal kind of life. Your body is like, just please have a salad, Stephanie. Like, just please have that. No more alcohol. And then you do for a couple days and you're like, all right, I'm getting back on track. I feel better.
Right. But if we never have those challenges along the way and learn how to navigate it back, that's that old yo-yo pattern.
Yeah, that's not good.
So we don't need to be jealous of the people who look like it's all just falling off of them in 0.4 seconds.
No. And I'm also not one that can like go on an extreme diet.
Well, that too.
Just to shed, some weight and then it comes back.
Right.
Because then you're so nervous to like even looking at a potato chip, you'll feel like you're gaining a pound. You know what I mean?
Well, and that really exacerbates sort of the food issues and the food conversation, which is very much part of the work that we want to do, is to eliminate a lot of all of that. All right. Well, Stephanie, thank you again for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I learned so much, as always.
Yay. Awesome. Well, I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. And all the social medias are that handle. But really, here's my request. Go to asaladwithasideofries.com, because that you can put your email address in. I don't bombard you with emails, but as we have seen, social media sometimes disappears, and I don't want to lose all of you. So asaladwithasideofries.com, whether it's there on the website or through social media, easiest way to reach out to learn more about working with me. And I'm personally inviting you to become a member. This is also on the website, or you can go to glow.fm/saladwithasideofries. Becoming a member shows your support for this podcast, this community, and primarily yourself and your health. You'll get this week's recipes for the artichoke, spinach, and white bean dip and the stuffed acorn squash. So remember, everybody, it's not about low carb or no carb or all carb, right? It's about quality carbohydrates, which means fiber. So work your way up to 25, 30, 35 grams of fiber and watch what happens, because as my teacher says, the road to health is paved with good intestines. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform, share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.